I'm Kelly Jennings, CEO of Powerband Solutions. Powerband is a cloud-based provider of auction, inventory, and finance solutions that make buying, selling, and financing vehicles more efficient. Powerband Solutions trades on the TSX Venture Exchange symbol PBX and on the OTCQB symbol PWWBF and on Frankfurt symbol 1ZV. For more information, please visit us at powerbandsolutions.com.
You're listening to HowStreet.com radio, available online at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. Welcome to HowStreet.com radio, the online source for market opinions. Here is Jim Goddard.
My guest is Stewart Muir, Executive Director of the Resource Works Society. Welcome back to the show, Stewart.
Thank you, Jim.
Stewart, next week is Canada LNG Week, a major conference gathering in Vancouver. Will you be there, and what will you be talking about if you are?
Well, that's right. This is a big conference. There's people coming in from all over Canada, as well as from Europe, from the U.S., from Asia, because LNG, liquefied natural gas, a product that will soon be coming in large quantities from British Columbia, is a developing industry. It's coming along really quickly. It's been a year or so, a couple of years, I think, since there was last a big LNG gathering in Vancouver. It's been reinstated, and so there's a lot of excitement. On Tuesday, I'll be on a panel, and we'll be talking about some of the public issues, understanding what people who want to see the climate benefits, the economic benefits of having natural gas as LNG on the market are going to be for BC, for Canada as a whole. So I'll be on a panel with a number of experts who are academics and in publishing and areas like that to share our research and ideas on this. How do we, bring this information? I mean, if you look at climate change, which a lot of people are talking about right now more than ever, we need to have solutions like LNG because it's a reliable way to replace other fuel types, particularly coal, that have certain benefits, but they have greenhouse gas negatives that are difficult to manage. So LNG is a way for countries like China, Korea, Japan, Taiwan, all over Asia, especially, and Europe too, to reduce their reliance on those particular kinds of fuels. And that's really the whole reason for this industry existing. And so this will be I think, for the whole week, for 3 days, going Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, the underlying theme to this. How do those, whether they're from First Nations, from industry, government, how do they get together, figure out how we don't miss the opportunity on this energy area? Canada's got a recent track record that is pretty ordinary, pretty bad, I would venture to say, on realizing the potential of a lot of the incredible opportunities that it's got, especially in the field of energy.
Well, don't forget, the Royal Bank brought out a report recently that said in the last 2 years, Canada had lost $100 billion worth of energy project developments and improvements. So we're leaving money on the table. We all know oil at some point is not going to be the flavor of the day. But in the meantime, while it still is, why can't we make money out of it?
Well, particularly a country like Canada, we have the tightest environmental regime in ensuring that the land, the air, the water is protected when we develop natural gas. We certainly hear from different people who don't want that industrial activity and these fuels to exist. But the fact is, 80% of our energy comes from oil and gas in the world today, and included in Canada. And we need to ensure we're producing it well. So Canada's really good at doing that. We also have lots of it. We have enormous reserves of natural gas, oil, coal that the world wants, because not every country has got this great combination of natural assets that we have, and a way to develop it responsibly to ensure that there's always progress on the environmental side. And that's one thing that you can really say about Canada. Always moving the needle on this stuff.
Also, when it comes to LNG development, when did it start to become a so-called evil fossil fuel instead of something that, if you're going to burn something, it's the cleanest thing out there?
Well, it's hard to say. I mean, that's been around for a few years. I think that in this day and age, there is not just the oil and gas industry, but there's also a kind of shadow industry of different groups that exist for the sole purpose of challenging just about anything that industrial Canada does or wants to do. And these are pretty good careers in themselves. They don't really create any GDP or exports or, true base economic value, but they do create, because they're to a great extent funded from outside the country, especially from the United States, roles for people to go into our government and policy processes and point to the supposed, or in some cases for sure, the real risks and negatives of having things. When you start to look at it in context, and this is what I've been doing with ResourceWorks for the last 5 years, of trying to find that proper understanding of what are the facts, what's the context for decision making for governments. I think Canada has really been pushed off course, off kilter almost. I think the influences of those who don't want to pursue opportunities we've got because of the challenges of risk management, the perceived negatives of anything. I mean, anything you could possibly think of doing has got some negatives you could talk about, and we tend to just focus on the negatives in Canada, I think, and that's leading back to your question, Jim. I think the source of a lot of it, but it's not only that. It's a very competitive world out there. Costs are always being cut. There's always someone coming into the marketplace with a newer, better, less expensive, more efficient product. Same is true in commodities. There's always people in there, but I think the core values that Canada's got to be this world-class supplier. I mean, it's really the only world-class thing we do. There's some nice things happening in other fields, but when it comes to the defining nature of Canada, it's the fact that we are able to grow and extract and produce and process the things that the whole world needs. And that's not going to change. There's definitely those who say, oh yeah, you can do without that. Well, you just can't. The physics don't allow us to do without the kind of reliable energy sources like oil and gas that we just need to get through the day, every single day.
I just had a thought here about all the poor canola farmers caught between, the political machinations of Huawei and China and their exports to China being blocked. Why don't we take that excess canola now and turn it into biodiesel? Well,
I'm sure they would be perturbed on the farmer side, because they've worked so hard to produce a biologically sound, desirable foodstuff, and develop a market for it. Can you imagine the years going back decades to this unique Canadian innovation in canola oil and putting this seed to extraordinarily high use, developing the markets, and now kaboom, we've got China, because of other diplomatic concerns, deciding, it seems, no one really says it definitively, but I think we're all adults here. We know what's going on. China's decided to punish canola because of issues it's got with Canada on other things. And it's just terrible for the farmers who've invested in it.
But what I'm saying is, why have it go to waste? Because it may just be dumped in a ditch somewhere and left to rot. This way, it's a useful product, it's value added, and it's not like there isn't a demand for bio products that are friendly to the environment right here. It's a sustainable energy source.
That is a creative thought, and biofuels in the mix of your gasoline that you put in your car in the future, definitely going to be a place for that. If we lock into that over the long term, we've got to make sure we understand what it means to use agricultural production for the purpose of road transportation. I think that's got various consequences, but I mean, you're a creative guy. You could have if you could run the economy on salad dressing, you're the man who would find a way to do it.
Well, better than the current smell of diesel. Why not have a diesel engine that smells like French fries?
That would be pretty alluring without the calories.
Yes. Of course, every fast food restaurant would gain business because you'd be hungry every time you smelled a truck. We'll have more with Stewart Muir right after this.
I'm Douglas Mason, CEO of Naturally Splendid, symbol NSP on the TSX Venture Exchange. Naturally Splendid is a biotechnology and consumer products company focused on the global cannabis and health markets. Naturally Splendid is expanding distribution in this rapidly growing market with products currently in Canada, the USA, South Korea, Germany, and Australia. To view our comprehensive company presentation and for more information, please visit our website at naturallysplendid.com.
Cypress Development Corp's flagship lithium project is located just east of Albemarle's Silver Peak mine in the heart of Clayton Valley, Nevada. A 12-hole exploration drill program for lithium-enriched claystone on Cypress's 100% controlled properties is now underway. Cypress Development Corp trades on the TSX Venture Exchange, symbol CYP, the pink CYDVF, and on Frankfurt's C1Z1. For more information, please visit our website, cypressdevelopmentcorp.com.
Welcome back. We're speaking with Stewart Muir. Stewart, the leader of the national NDP, now has a message about fossil fuels and so on. What is Jagmeet Singh saying?
Yeah, he's, I think, been responding to a legend of national NDP politics in BC. That's Sven Robinson, who's come out looking to get his seat back. It's been almost 15 years since he had to give up his seat for various interesting reasons. But Sven has been out there saying that we have to stop using any kind of oil and gas. We need to not have LNG, which previously Jagmeet Singh, in the role of leader of the NDP, has said he's good with, and also eliminate any so-called subsidies to oil and gas in Canada and put the money that they claim is in that, that's another discussion as to whether it really is, into renewables and things like that. So Jagmeet Singh has come out with this really surprising statement this week to reverse his previous posture on projects, particularly like LNG Canada. He said LNG involves fracking. Fracking means more emissions. I don't know what he means by that, more emissions from fracking. And he says, I do not believe that fracking or fossil fuels are the future of our country. It's difficult to say where he could have got that information because almost none of it is true. So, I think for those, particularly in labor, the labor movement that sees the federal NDP brand as its, the political horse that it's hitching its wagon to, traditionally, of course, that's the case. I think, especially the building trades, those who build pipelines and LNG plants, electricians, the industrial unions, generally speaking, they must be looking this week at their support for Jagmeet Singh and what these new statements mean, because they had been given a very different understanding of where he stood on supporting essentially their jobs. All of a sudden he doesn't support their jobs anymore. That's going to be a big issue.
Is this a case of, because of the recent provincial election results in PEI and the Greens winning a traditionally NDP seat in Nanaimo, is the NDP trying to push the Greens out by being a greener kind of political party?
It does sound like that. There's certainly some commentators out there who are developing this theme. Kind of makes sense. On the other hand, it's the biggest gift that Jagmeet Singh could give to Justin Trudeau is to hive off in a direction that is seen by a significant part of the population as being radical and not realistic. I mean, there's nothing realistic about his statements on energy. It seems to indicate his energy illiteracy. And you can't be running to lead a country if you don't have a most basic understanding about industry. If he's ever been to oil and gas producing parts of the country, he would know this for himself through simply observing it. It's there to be seen.
Well, what about practical day-to-day life? Most people have to commute using a car or a truck to work because they don't have rapid transit laid down to their doorstep. If you have a small business, you usually have to transport goods of some kind. If you're a mechanic or a plumber or an electrician, you have to have your tools and repair goods with you. And I don't see electric vehicles at this moment ready to help them move their stuff at any point.
Yeah, I think the issue here, and this is really maybe the biggest public policy issue of our time, it's yet to be fully fleshed out or understood. I think it's something that we need to have a bigger focus on, which is that those who are preaching renewables and this sort of get off oil and gas, leave it in the ground, really don't have an argument that's based on what happens in the real world. They have some nice theories, and they feel good talking about those theories, and they wish the planet well, and they hope for the best. But none of those things are actually sufficient to deal with the scale of the challenges that are real and do exist, that are ahead of us. And I mean, look, you should be looking at carbon capture and storage. That's the biggest thing that we can be doing, because the reality is we're going to be running planes and locomotives and combine harvesters and ambulances and fire trucks and ships and all kinds of other things. Even if we got all the cars up, converted to some other kind of power, whether it turns out to be electric cars that has its own set of problems or hydrogen or what have you, you're still going to need all of these power intensive uses to be served with things that are reliable hydrocarbons. But you want to reduce the negatives of using them, and that's where carbon capture comes in. Whether it's on the tailpipe you're capturing the carbon, whether you're using devices or systems to remineralize carbon dioxide from the air and return it to the earth, injecting it into wells, all kinds of things that are being worked on around the world. When I was in London, England recently at a conference of international petroleum people, I was interested to see what they were talking about on climate. That's why I wanted to see what the state of thinking about. You know what they were talking about? They were talking about using made in Canada technology in carbon capture and storage from Saskatchewan to build one of the biggest carbon capture projects that's ever been thought about in the north of England to help the North Sea oil become less carbon intensive. This is something that we in Canada, even though we're leaders in it, aren't talking about because it's been drowned out by the renewables curse. Right now, renewables chorus. I am looking at the scale of electrification that would be needed to meet the targets that the federal government has got. I mean, it's pie in the sky. We would need to have 135 new Site Cs producing green, zero carbon electricity by 2030. I give it 10, 11 years in order to meet these goals. It's ridiculous. Look at the trouble with one Site C. So if you're of a practical mindset, you're looking at the actual information, there's no way you can be processing it thinking, yeah, this is all good, this makes sense, because it simply doesn't. So we need carbon capture. We need to have a kind of honest conversation about what's needed, this psychological need for an all-in-one solution that covers off all of the problems, get it done all at once. Well, that's not how the world works. We have to seek the answers in all kinds of ways that are accessible, do the work. It's hard work. It's not easy. It takes a lot of time, and be satisfied with good. And when we can't reach perfect, good is actually pretty good. And I think, unfortunately, what's happening is because of the obsession right now with the perfect, like Jagmeet Singh, he thinks we should move to this perfect world tomorrow and, stop preventing Jagmeet Singh from letting that happen. You're standing in his way. Okay, let's stand aside and let him do it. There's no way he could do it. Why not do the things that are attainable and pretty good as they are? And we know what those things are. We're just not investing in them properly.
We'll have more with Stewart Muir right after this.
Grand Portage Resources recently completed the 2018 drill program on its 100% controlled Herbert Gold Discovery property located in the prolific Juneau Belt in southeast Alaska. Drill results are expected through late 2018. Past drill results included numerous multi-ounce gold assays on multiple veins. Grand Portage trading symbols are GPG on the TSX Venture, GPTRF on the OTCQB, and GPB on Frankfurt. For more information, please visit our website, grandportage.com.
Don't miss out. Stay informed. Receive the HowStreet.com weekly recap with thought-provoking podcasts, radio, and articles delivered to your inbox. Sign up for the HowStreet.com weekly recap on our homepage at HowStreet.com.
Welcome back. We're speaking with Stewart Muir. Stewart, the governor of Washington State has signed a bill that would prevent fracking of any kind in Washington State, but doesn't Washington State lack the kind of strata that would be friendly to fracking in oil and gas exploration, whereas it'd be kind of like the Alberta government signing a bill against whale hunting?
Yeah, and I hear they've banned banana cultivation in Northwest Territories, and Jay Inslee, the governor of Washington, is just as big a visionary as someone who proposed that, because there are no shale deposits that they could frack for natural gas or oil in Washington State. Why would he say something like this? Well, of course, he's running for the Democratic presidential nomination in the States. That's why he's coming out with all kinds. That's only one example of the pronouncements we're hearing from Jay Inslee. It's clear he's going to try to position himself somewhere in the Bernie Sanders zone of economic and energy lunacy. He's already shown that he doesn't appreciate that you have to make decisions and follow through with the work when it comes to things like LNG, because he's also, at the same time as claiming to ban fracking, he's also said he's now against the Tacoma LNG project. Tacoma, of course, is the neighbor city of Seattle, and there is an LNG plant being proposed for there, would use Canadian BC natural gas. One of the selling points, and it was actually talked about in the local process down in Tacoma, is the fact that the natural gas being proposed to use from BC is about 1/5 of the CO2 intensity of other gas that it could source from the U.S. So our gas is actually cleaner gas than a lot of other gases. It has, in some places, a lot less sulfur, less CO2. So it's not just that clean burning gas is a positive because it's lower GHGs than coal. It's that BC gas within that whole classification is top. But that's not of interest to Jay Inslee because he is pursuing that vote, I suppose, or that Democratic membership who would select him as their candidate that has adopted the idea that we don't need to have natural gas.
Stewart, was there anything else you wanted to add to today's show?
Well, there's a new post at resourceworks.com. I'd like to recommend anyone who's listening to check it out because it's a paper that I think everyone should read, authored by one of Canada's most accomplished and informed investors in energy. He recently shared a career's worth of his knowledge with senators. The article is called In Search of the Win-Win Solution for Canada and the Planet, and it looked at a gentleman, Mac Van Willigen, and his paper. It's a must-read. So check it out on resourceworks.com.
Mm-hmm. And for anyone interested in the LNG conference, how can they get more information about your appearance there?
Yes, my appearance is at 11:30 on Tuesday, the 21st, and if you go to CanadaGasLNG.com, that's the website for the conference. The crowd for this is a professional one from industry. The admission to it is a little pricey, but I think there are some interesting things to look at. There's an exhibition, and check out the site to see what you'd like to know. I think it's remarkable. It's the first time there's been a major international oil and gas related, in this case LNG, conference in Canada for quite a while. So it's good news for Vancouver to be back on the map.
Stewart, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thanks, Jim.
My guest has been Stewart Muir, Executive Director of the Resource Works Society. His Twitter handle, @SJMuir, and his website, resourceworks.com. You're listening to HowStreet.com radio. Find us on Twitter @HowStreet. Our YouTube channel is Talk Digital Network. If you have questions for Stewart or any of our other guests, you can send them to info@HowStreet.com. I'm Jim Goddard. Thanks for listening.
Comments made on HowStreet.com radio are an expression of opinion only and should not be construed in any matter whatsoever as recommendations to buy or sell any financial instrument at any time. Available online at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. HowStreet.com radio is a production of HowStreet Media Incorporated.